Hello, everyone. Colonel George Washington here. Happy to come to you in this month of April, the month of the military child, a month honoring each and every one of you, which I find very near and dear to my heart. I told you a story and a bit about my youth last week, and so this week I'm going to move forward in age to the first time I stepped out on my own and served my country, the Empire of Great Britain, of course. I was very young, 1753, I was 20 years old, and I was sent into the frontier to deliver messages to the French, telling them to leave the Ohio. Now, why is that important? It probably doesn't very matter much to you. But the point is, the French had something we wanted, we had something that the French wanted, and we were going to take it from them if we could. As we traveled through the frontier, you have to understand it was a very different time then. There were woods that were so thick, the light of the sun would not touch the ground. You had to go by, not by roads, but by paths that animals and the Native American Indians cut through the woods. I had several guides with me who would take me to the frontier, men who had been there before. I got to meet men like Half King, Tanagerison, and Monocotuca, great leaders of the Mingo people, the Iroquois, the Shawnee, and others. They walked along with me to deliver this important message to the French. My opportunity had come to serve my king, and I did not wish to make a mistake. I wished to make sure that everyone knew that I could do what I had set out to do, that my responsibility, my honor, my virtue, my integrity was most important. And so, off into the forests I went. We arrived safely. I was able to deliver my message to the French. They refused to leave, as we expected them to do, very politely. The French are always polite. And this is where the important part of the story comes in. We began to travel back to bring news of this event to my commanding officers, the governor of Virginia. Along the way, I made several mistakes, things that I perhaps did not have enough experience to understand. With my desire to serve my country, I acted occasionally a bit ahead of myself, with the impetuosity or the excitement of being young, wanting to do a good job, make sure that everyone knew that I could do what I'd set out to do. And so a snowstorm started deep in the mountains, and we had to leave our horses behind, for they could not find enough food. So we left them with several of our companions to take care of them. We left our Indian companions as well, for unfortunately, well, fortunately for them, unfortunately for us, they had other things to attend to. It was dangerous to travel. They needed to go take care of their families. So I left with one man, Mr. Christopher Gist, and together we traveled through the frontier, through a great snowstorm, so thick, in fact, at times you could not see your hand in front of your face. And that was my first mistake, leaving all of these men behind. Mr. Gist said we should not go, and I determined that we must arrive quickly. And so I overruled him. Remember, very young, not very experienced. He was much older than I is, and I should have listened to him. You'll probably have times like that in your life, where you should listen to someone who is more experienced than you are. Anyhow, we traveled through the woods. The snowstorm was so bad, we got lost. We could not find our way. And we found a small town and hired a guide who could lead us, hopefully, the rest of the way through the wilderness. I should have been warned by the name, for this was my second mistake. I hired a guide in a place called Murdering Town. You heard me correctly, Murdering Town. And this fellow perhaps was not as honest as he should have been, or as I hoped he would be. He began to lead us through the woods, and very quickly we realized he was taking us in the wrong direction entirely. We questioned him. He said, "Oh no, everything was fine. We're taking you to my hunting lodge, just a few shouts distance, the time it takes for your voice to travel from one place to another." Hours later, still no hunting lodge, until finally his true intentions appeared. He spun around, aimed his rifle at us, and pulled the trigger, shooting at Mr. Gist and I. The musket went off. The round passed us harmlessly. Neither of us touched. I was frozen in my steps, did not know what to do. Gist leapt upon him, threw him against a tree, prepared to take his life then and there. And I made my third mistake. I said, no, do not kill him. If we kill him, his family will come and have vengeance upon us. Let him go. Mr. Gist did. And we have no doubt he went and got his friends and family and immediately began to chase us through the woods. And a merry chase it was. Us fearing every phantom, shadow behind every tree, running as quickly as we could through the woods, hoping against hope we would not be caught and killed in the wilderness. We came to a river, the Allegheny, hoping to cross it on the frozen surface of for it was so cold that we'd crossed the first time on a frozen surface, and we hoped to do so again. Unfortunately, we could not, for the ice had broken up upstream, and we could not cross on foot. It was too dangerous, too many ice floes smashing and careening down the river. The noise was deafening. So we built a raft. I could not stop. We had to move with haste, and thus I made my fourth mistake, not being patient. We built the raft. We began to cross. An ice floe smashed into the raft, threatening to throw all of us into the river. And I took my moment to make up for all of my mistakes. I knew I would save Mr. Gist and myself and complete my mission if I only behaved with honor and bravery in that moment. And so I took the pole we were using to push across the river. I dug it into the base of the river, stopping myself, the raft, Mr. Gist, and the flow of the water itself. I'm teasing. I did not stop any of those things. Instead, I was thrown into the river head over heels, splashing into frigid, freezing water. The breath knocked out of my lungs. The raft began to pass over my head, and by some miracle, my arm hooked onto it. Mr. Gist pulled me out, and we spent the night in the middle of the river on an island, trying not to freeze to death. Mr. Gist nearly died. No fire, nothing to warm us. And to tell you how cold it was, by the next morning, the river had frozen over enough to cross on foot. So if I'd just been patient and waited a few hours, no one would have had to take a short bath. The story I told you last week is about me losing my clothes at a river, and I have to admit, now that I think on it, I don't have much luck crossing bodies of water. You know, the worst part about this all was, it was the Christmastide season. It was Christmas. Crossing a frozen river, which I have vowed never again to do. Nothing ever good comes of crossing frozen rivers at Christmas time. I'm not sure how that will apply in your lives or mine, but the point is, it's a humorous story. All of that to say, I learned through this process the importance of listening to those around me, taking patience, being measured in your approach, not rushing headlong into things. But when action is necessary, even if it brings harm to yourself, one must be prepared to act. And acknowledge your mistakes. Maybe you can learn something from that. Maybe not. You all may be much smarter than I was at that age. It's possible. I hope to see you again very, very soon. And this time we will talk a bit more about you. Until we meet again, friends. Purple Up for Military Kids. Supporting the Military Child, April 15th. Purple Up for Military Kids is a day for DODEA communities to wear purple to show support and thank military children for their strength and sacrifices. Purple indicates that all branches of the military are supported. Air Force blue, Army green, Navy blue, Marine red, and Coast Guard blue all are thought to combine together as a single color, purple.